Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's DSS Break. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here live every week to talk about data science experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. I'm Anna Anisin, the CEO and founder at Data Science Salon, and I'm streaming live from our headquarters located in the heart of Miami, right next to the Design District. And this is a really special segment because this month we've been really focused on celebrating Women's Month and elevating women. And today I'm really excited to give these communities a voice. And we can also talk about a mission to close a gender gap in tech and how we can accomplish that together and some actionable things that you can actually do to support these initiatives. I'm really excited to welcome Lori Rodriguez, who is the U.S. chapter president at Women in Tech, and Emily Gupton, who is director of community partnerships at Austin Women in Technology. And I'm really excited to learn about your community goals and initiatives for the year and why this is so important and how you all can be involved in supporting these communities. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, same. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited, and I know that we don't have a ton of time, so I want to take advantage of having both of you here. Maybe first you can, each one of you could share a little bit about yourself and your background and how you kind of got involved in these initiatives.
Emily,
Yeah,
go ahead and start.
yeah, happy to. So my name is Emily Gupton. I'm Community Partnerships Director for Austin Women in Technology. And this is, we're a volunteer board. We're a grassroots Austin organization, and we've been around for 20 years. And our goal is to foster professional and personal growth for women in technology. And for us, that's very broad. So that could be very technical roles or sales, marketing, people looking to transition into technology. And I actually joined a couple of years ago the organization because I was moving into a role. I actually now run a technology startup here in Austin, and that is not my background. So I joined to find that community, and it's been really impactful and powerful for me. And I joined the board, and I'm very passionate about the sense of community that we have here in Austin with AWT. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. What about you, Lori?
Yeah, so I have 30 plus years in technology background, before it started. So when there was DOS and Lotus 1, 2, 3, and then moved through the desktop publishing revolution, and ended up being the CIO CIO equivalent. We really had the titles back then, for the number 3 marketing promotions agency in the world at that time. And that's where I'm headquartered. I'm in Connecticut, and I found out about Gartner, the largest technology resources advisory company in the world, was also in Connecticut. I said I want to work there because I wanted to be a part of changing every industry to be a digital industry, because I just was so excited about the promise of technology. That's how I got into technology. I ended up getting into Gartner. I stayed there for about 20 years. In that capacity, I interviewed over 1,000 CIOs and other C-suite technology leaders. Very few of them were women. And so I started to poke into that. And is this a problem? And why is that? And about 2.5 years ago, I started writing a book on women in STEM, to kind of figure out how I can be part of that solution. And I ran into the founder of Women in Tech. This particular one's headquartered in Paris. We have 45 chapters around the world. The US is a chapter, but we're starting sub chapters, and Austin is on my radar. So we have to talk, Emily. We have to talk. It's an amazing organization. And 2 years ago, I left Gartner to just focus full time on getting women into technology, all volunteer position. And I just published my book 2 years to the day, my last day at Gartner. Women in Tech we've impacted up to around, it started in 2018, and we've already impacted over close to 300,000 women across the world. We have 200,000 members. The US is one of the smallest chapters, but we're looking to change that. Our mission is very similar, Emily, twofold. One is to help women through technology, all women. So, for example, in Zambia, we were building wells, working with the local women there to build wells because girls couldn't even go to school. They were spending all their time getting water, all the way up to networking events here in the US. We focus on education, business, social inclusion, and advocacy. In the US, our focus is on networking events, because that's how you get your job. That visibility and familiarity is how you get your job. And women don't do that. They think it's, I'm too busy. I can't, do that. I've got too much work at home and too much work at work and blah, blah, blah. You have to do that. That's how we change. That's how we get more women into STEM. That's how we get more women up into leadership roles in tech. And then the other thing we're starting to do, and we're piloting in Houston. So again, need to talk to you, Emily, is we're partnering with Nerdy Girl Success to have a half-day event around getting girls who are typically underrepresented in professional careers in general, and partnering them with mentors for a half-day event, and then all sorts of workshops and activities to carry the lessons they learn from speaking one-on-one with these senior women into the rest of their lives.
That's great. Really quick sidebar on that. One of our big initiatives this year for AWT, we get a lot of asks for mentorship, and we're actually launching later this year a mentorship program specifically for our members, because you're so right. It's hard. How do you navigate this and these changes, and especially in STEM and going into careers if you come out of academia and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited to connect after this.
Absolutely. See, you've already created some great synergy here, Anna.
Great. Well, if you guys ever come to Miami to do something, let us know. Because there's definitely a community here that's pretty new but growing. So I think, getting more women involved and having more events all around that, I agree, would definitely help bring more people together. Because with hiring, I also agree that is very, very important. And I was actually, my next question was going to ask you about your initiative this year. Is there any initiative, any other initiative, Lori, that you wanted to talk about that you guys are planning specifically this year? Feel free to talk
rolling out local events. We started that November of last year, and we're in New York City, which is just thriving. We have a nascent community in Miami, so we have done some events. So again, Anna, we need to talk. We're in Northern California. We're looking to start basically chapters all over every tech hub, including the middle of the country as well. So if you're interested in being a member of a local chapter, ping me on LinkedIn. If you are interested in leading a local chapter, again, ping me on LinkedIn. We make it super, super easy. It's very plug and play. We support you, all the way with the social media. There are just some things we can't do on the ground, and that's what, we help you with. So local chapters, this notion of this mentorship program, half day. Emily, I want to talk to you about what you're doing so we can tap into that as well. And then globally, we have, again, this whole notion that the future is already here. It's unevenly distributed. We're working with global finance charities on the global level for skilling women in the poorest areas of the world. So going into things like the poorest, most crime-ridden area of the favelas in Brazil, building a school there and teaching them Web3 and crypto skills. A lot of people are intimidated in that, even with college education, right? And here we are, we're taking people in the poorest countries. We're also going to sub-Saharan Africa, and we've got, they're working with communities there, because the opportunity to uplift entire villages, communities, and countries with Web3, crypto skills, and other digital skills it's incredible, the opportunity in front of us. And we often write off people based on poverty and not understanding that it's access. So I'm really excited about what the global organization's doing there. And I can't wait to get my hands on the content so we can apply that here in the US as well.
No, that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, and we'll share definitely in the comments section, we'll share a link how they could support you, Lori, and your initiatives. Emily, is there anything else you'd like to share before we move to our next kind of point of discussion?
Sure. So for us, we're of course smaller. We're here in Austin, so we're very local, and we're focused on the local community. We have a couple of initiatives going on this year separate from the mentorship program. My position, Community Partnerships Director, is something new for us, and we're really looking to partner with other local organizations and even national ones that have local chapters. So Lori, I'm so glad we're connected on how we can kind of bridge gaps where there might be gaps in like our offerings, because we're largely networking, mentorship opportunities for people, or speaking opportunities. Connect, learn, grow, and lead are our pillars. And so for people who need technical upskilling or reskilling, things like that, connecting with other DEI groups in the community, that's what I'm looking to do. So that's a big focus for us, is how we can get our members exposed to other organizations here in the area or in the nation to, support them in what they're looking for.
Awesome. No, that's great. And we'll also share your links and everything. So if anybody wants to be involved, yeah, please connect with Emily.
And I will give a quick shout that you do not have to be a member to come to our events. So we have about 250-ish now people that come to our live events. It's insane. So if you're in Austin, we'd love to have you. So please sign up on our website to come and say hi.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we have a good community there. We'll definitely share this with them for sure. And so I think now maybe we could talk a little bit about kind of what are the biggest challenges to close a gender gap in tech, I guess, because I feel like, I was reading some articles on Chief specifically, and, they said that there is actually, less and less, higher executives who are women. So that's actually, the percentage is shrinking for that. So what can we do to make this easier, right? Like, what can we do to support women to actually like stay at those positions, right, and get the support that they need? What are your thoughts about that? And I know that you are both, supporting and, running groups that are kind of working towards that, but maybe some specific things that we could talk about.
I think for us, the community support and like helping people navigate, how do I interview for this? What skills do I need to have, or what do I bring to the table to take that next step in my career? That's something that we're all pretty passionate about here at AWT. And our group has everything from high school graduates and college graduates all the way up to executives. So I think building that network of people to support you and help you is really important. And Laura, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I could talk about this for like an hour.
I know. You'd never get off this call, Anna. We started it, right, saying how important networking is, and I didn't do that enough in my early career. I was, I have 5 kids, and was commuting 55 miles each way, which was almost up to 2 hours. Just insanity, and then all the work that you have to do at home, and everything else. I didn't think I had time to do it. It's really critical. It's working smarter rather than harder, and networking is going to help you do that. Everything from finding that nanny because yours just quit, right? And so it saves you time in the long run, and it certainly is going to increase your earning opportunities and power over time. So it's not a nice to have. It's absolutely critical for women. So that's a must. And I love the fact that you're bringing in with the interviewing skills and the upskilling and all that other stuff, and being very supportive of one another. Saying, how can I support you? Here's what I can offer at the same moment that you're asking for something. So when you go to the networking events, I always tell people, come away with at least 2 contacts that you're going to hold yourself accountable for to actually contact later, who are going to help you either answer a question that you're dealing or a problem you're dealing with now, and or be that next step in your career to help you get there, whether that's running something by them or whatever. And I explicitly give permission to people in the networking events that's what they're there to do. Yes, the wine, the community, the fun, the laughter is absolutely fantastic, but you're there also to come away with context to move your career forward. The other thing, go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback on that real quick. I think the follow-up is really hard for some people, especially with digital. Like, how do you navigate that if you're virtual, or, if you're more comfortable behind a screen? And Heather, our president, and I went to a really interesting talk a couple of weeks ago at the Austin Technology Council, and there was a great speaker there who the whole focus was networking. And she schedules structured time once a week, once a month, whatever that frequency is, to have those touch points with the people that you really do connect with and can support you, and how you can help them and how they can help you and where you're at, and just to check in to keep that connection and that bond. Because I think as we navigate, especially remote work, hybrid work, virtual traveling, whatever, it's hard to keep those connections strong.
Oh, I totally am happy you brought that up. And scheduling that time is pretty critical. Since I left Gartner, I'm just constantly, so my Calendly, I literally block, it's time blocking. I block time for this, and I use Calendly, other people use other things, and I have them all set up 15 minutes, half hour, whatever, and off they go. I'm sending them to people constantly. And if you and it's an overused word, authentic, but if you are meeting somebody and you're authentically asking for help, and you're not dealing with it like a transaction, like you're trying to get something from somebody, you are in a way, but it's more of a dialogue, and there's an appreciation for that other person's time and the knowledge that they're about to impart. If you're grateful for that, people are so willing to help you. It's unbelievable, the people I've connected with that I cannot believe, even just cold calling through LinkedIn, if you set it up the right way. So I completely agree. You have to make the effort to follow through on the connections that you've made, and have those conversations and build those relationships over time.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's kind of like a give and take. The more you put out there, the more you'll get back. So, I feel like that's a nice way to put it. Even when you're later, I feel like it is much harder also to find time for those things when you're older and you have kids, and but I think it is important. And again, I'm also a huge networker. Actually, I have a funny story about that. When I actually had started my first company in my early 20s, I went, like, I didn't really know anybody, and I went out there to like one of the first O'Reilly media conferences, and I started talking to people. And actually, when I put on these, I had these really cool shoes on, and that's how I would start the conversation. So I think having like something little that you can strike a conversation, like something different that people will be like, oh, I like your shoes, or I like your glasses, or I love, that's a really good way to like kind of break the ice with people. And actually, the person that I met that way at that conference introduced me to the people who bought that company, actually.
Oh, wow.
When I was
There you
25.
go.
Yeah. So it was actually like, for me, it's all about networking. So I'm like 100 and 200% there with you. Cause I think that really, like, if you don't put yourself out there, then like it's not going to just come to you, right? You have to put yourself out there, make those connections, and do the work on the side. And then you'll get, the right things will come your way, the right opportunities.
Yeah. And it's a give to get. I'm glad you brought that up. It's not get to give, it's give to get. When I just started giving and writing, let me know how I may support you in my, if someone asked to connect, I'd be great, happy to connect. Let me know how I can support you. And you get on these calls and you just start talking. You have no idea that, that person's sister's cousin's boss lived in your neighborhood. It's the strangest thing how you can find these points of connection that build relationships over time that help you in the long run. You get more when you give. It's been an incredible 2 years of experience, changing my paradigm, changing how I approached how I work. But I do want to mention you, because the question is the biggest, what do you consider the biggest challenge to close the gender gap? And in all the research that I've done and the conversations, and this is something, when you're building the relationships over time, you may be able to get to these questions, but domestic life is critical. Because if you think about it, it's a simple math problem. Back in the 1950s, predominantly, I think it was like 10% of the population was not married, and most marriages were heterosexual at that time. We don't have that anymore. It's changed completely. But you had one person who stayed at home and was responsible for the domestic work, right? Unpaid work at home, whatever you want to call that. And the other person went off to the paid workforce. Those were two people, two jobs.
Yep.
And the women were at home. So our systems of our institutions and our management principles and HR, everything was built around that paradigm. And so in the 70s, all that started to change for a whole bunch of reasons that could be another 3-hour conversation. But we're not in that world anymore. And so now that you have whatever the percentage of women in the workforce, you have 2 people in the paid labor force. You still have the third job of the the full-time domestic work job. So you have two people trying to divide up three jobs, and it usually ends up being a woman doing two of the jobs or
That's
close to it, right? So there is some support there. That's our biggest problem, because when you get mid-career, 56% of the women in technology drop out mid-career.
Yep.
And everyone thinks it's because of maternity instincts and all this other stuff. And yes, things change when you have children, but there's elder care. There's a lot of it has to do with the frustration. Back to McKinsey's broken rung reporting, and we're not getting promoted. We're frustrated in our jobs. It starts to get very complicated. And
and also, no support from your HR. There's no benefits. Like, the women are not getting as many benefits, right? Like, why would you choose, like, if you're looking at your husband's package versus your package, right? Like, it makes more sense that your husband goes to work, right? So I feel like
economically, absolutely, they're making more money. You're frustrated. You don't see a path forward, blah, blah, blah. However, that's kind of what's out there. Underneath that, if you start to unpack things, we make it very difficult for men in the workforce to step out, to be good husbands, to be good fathers. Think of the arguments and, being laughed at for taking paternity leave, being chided at work for going to pick your kid up from school, right? We don't make it easy for men to pick up the slack at home either. We stigmatize that. So there's a lot of work that we have to be doing to consider HR packages for men in terms of paternity leave and paternal care, and taking some of that responsibility for that domestic work that has to be done. So it's twofold. When we, as always, when women rise, men rise as well. But we also need to be focusing, this isn't just a woman's issue, it's a men's issue as well. During the pandemic, they were home with their kids. They enjoyed that. The men built these relationships with their children, and we're not making it easy for them to continue those relationships, because now they're just back in the rat trap. And then the expectation is the woman's going to go home or whatever. So we have to solve this equity at home as well. And by the way, the women in my book, and same-sex couples have figured this out. So it is a solvable problem.
Right.
It's a solvable problem. And so we are very much talking about heterosexual couples here, trying to figure this out. There's a great book by Jennifer Newsom called Fair Play. Awesome. It's fantastic. It changes the conversation at home.
Can you share that after in the comments, please?
Yeah.
Or, I think that's a really good point. And I think, like, I feel like it takes kind of everybody to, make a change, right? Consciously, because as you said, this has been figured out. We're just trying to figure out as normal couples, right? Or more normal couples. Or I don't feel like, now whatever is normal is, but it's just harder for heterosexual couples, as you said, to figure this out. And I know, because I struggle with this myself. So, and I think it's something that, we could support each other. And I feel like groups like yours support women to be more successful, and maybe have those conversations too internally, right? So to get that support. And I think we can end this conversation by, maybe you ladies could share a wish that you have for women in tech and other technical fields. My wish would be really to, get rid of the bias and make the things more equal. But I know it's not going to happen overnight, but that's always something, any kind of industry that I am involved in, I always try to put women forward. And that's kind of a little bit that I try to do to give back. So, and hopefully it'll make a difference.
Yeah. For me, one of the things, and this kind of goes a little bit to where we were heading with Lori's discussion, is equitable pay. Also, I think that really impacts women, and especially women of color are very impacted by this. And so when they're making the decision of, like, do I stay home with the kids, or do I, does my husband go back? I think equitable pay and equitable opportunity and fundraising is, like, heavily impacted for women founders and stuff. So I think paying attention to that and giving equal opportunities to women and women of color is how we're going to help them win. in those arenas.
I'm glad you brought up the just exponentially worse environment for women in color. It's really unacceptable
Yeah.
what women in color have to face. So thank you for bringing that up. Um, Certainly, there's just at the highest level gender parity at all levels of tech, especially in technical roles, not just the marketing department or HR, but then also in technical roles, all the way up, all the way from the coder who's making those final decisions that impact our lives to leadership, where they're going in markets. Um, Again, more equitable support at home for men and women to look at their roles differently in a first principle sort of way. And then the last thing, and we didn't really touch on this, is to change the narrative about women at work from simply looking at it like a moral imperative, like, oh, it's, get women in there, it's nice to do, and, it's a hostile environment. Study after study show when we are in leadership positions, the company's more profitable, they get higher revenue driven. Just again, going back to the funding, for every dollar invested in a woman's founded organization, women return $2 for every dollar for men. So like what it makes no sense. And from just a market perspective, we drive 70 to 80% of consumer purchases are made by women. Huge. And it's not just household products or diapers or femtech or whatever. 62% of car purchases. 62% of car purchases. But if you look at the commercials, they're certainly not, we're not being targeted. So there's a huge opportunity both for growing markets as well as the amount of wealth that we actually hold in our hands that's going to change. $30 trillion of wealth is going to pass from aging boomers as the men die 7 years earlier into the hands of women. That's huge. And then just from when you have women in leadership, the profitability, et cetera. So it is an economic and fiduciary duty of boards and leadership to start really looking at women both in their organization and as a market power that they are. So that's kind of, my down the line wish is that we change this narrative from like beggars to say, no, we hold power and you need to understand that because we're tired of not wielding it and we're going to wield it going forward.
I love that. That's like a really, thank you so much, because that was very powerful. And I want to thank both of you, Lori and Emily, for sharing your community's mission and sharing all this other great information and advice. It's really a pleasure to have you, and I look forward to collaborating with both of you and really trying to make a difference. Like, let's change this. Like, I'm so sick of it. Like, I've been talking about this since literally I was in my early 20s, and now almost 20 years later we're still talking about this. Like, let's do something. You guys can also make a difference, so please support these organizations. And if you have any other resources you'd like to share, Lori, definitely share that book. That sounds like a really good one. And I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and have a great rest of the week, everybody. Thank you, Lori and Emily. Bye, guys.
Bye.